welcome to the Golden Moment podcast. My name's Mijo Biscan. In today's episode, I had a really great conversation with my great friend Mick Young. He's a musician, he's a teacher, he's a parent, he's a spiritual guru, he's a relationship counselor. He's so many things, and this conversation was an excuse for me to have a public conversation with my friend Mick, who I often have private conversations with, where we have very long, meandering conversations that are very open and always intellectually stimulating. I always learn something. I also feel very heard when I'm in a conversation with Mick, and you'll see that he's just a very thoughtful, great person. So I really wanted to bring him onto this podcast to introduce him to you. He's been a mentor of mine. He's been many things. So this is an opportunity for me to, I suppose, honor him and get him out in front of you. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. Here's my conversation with Mick Young. So I'm here with Mr. Mick Young. Excellent human, good friend, extraordinaire, musician, all sorts of things. Guitar teacher. What else do you do, Mick? Everything.
Parenting.
He parents very intensively.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm really happy we're doing this. I think this podcast will have a slightly different flavor to the other ones I've done because we've known each other for a long time. We've known each other for 20-something years, probably.
Yeah.
Mid-2000s, I'd say.
Yeah.
Is that 20 years yet? 15, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We've played music together. We've toured together. We've helped each other in lots of other ways. You've been also a mentor who's helped me in life, love, music, business, and just keep my shit together. Someone who I probably one of the few people who I feel that I can definitely just be myself around, which is a huge gift. So that's one of the reasons I'm excited about this. So we might just go through a bit of your journey so people get to know you a little bit, because whether you know it or not, I'm planning on you being a repeat guest.
Okay.
And so it'd be great for people to get to know you. So maybe you can give us a quick rundown, and then we might go back to a few key points throughout your life. So yeah, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Well, yikes. Yeah, well, gee, where do you start? I should just say as well, you've helped me through a ridiculous amount of things as well. It's not a one-way street there. I don't quite know where to start. Maybe with music, that's sort of how we got connected anyway, was I had my first band happening in Melbourne and called the Restless. So I'd moved from the country, grew up in a town called Stawell, Western Victoria, 300 kilometres northwest of Melbourne, and basically was a kid who was very sporty, into footy and tennis and cricket, and then but also music, that was a problem. too many different interests conflicting. Then when I finished school, I moved to Melbourne, moved to the Big Smoke, and studied music at Box Hill TAFE, which was the best thing about that was just meeting other musicians, and then started writing songs sort of actually after I finished studying music. Studying music sort of held me back in some ways, I think, and then started writing songs, and eventually got this band together, the Restless, and things went pretty well pretty quickly with radio play on Triple J and a couple of EPs and an album, etc. And then met you along the way there somewhere, and we did some touring, and actually that was, well, we played together, didn't we, with you when you were in Lamplight, and then when the band went its separate ways, and I started playing under the name Young Werther, which was sort of a solo project, and that was where you and I actually toured together, you actually playing my songs, which was sort of mad, silly, crazy, insane fun. Staying in cheap, crappy hotel rooms and drinking what was it called? I forgot what it's called. Instant coffee. Forgot what instant coffee was called there for a second. Yeah. And then I somewhere in there, I had a couple of kids and got married and all that jazz. And then I was teaching music all the way through that as well because of there was big dollars rolling in from the independent music scene, of course, but
Yeah.
no, I had to support.
You needed to keep it real.
Yeah. No, I had a family to feed and all that jazz, so I taught music all the way through. And I got to this point when I was so the other thing that had been a constant throughout my life since the time I was about 18 or 19 was a sort of a spiritual seeking, spiritual journey of some kind through various traditions and meditation practices and many different books and spiritual leaders that I sort of tried to emulate or follow or whatever. And then came this point, was about 2010, I think, where my album hadn't really gone anywhere. The touring thing wasn't working for me as a family man, and it wasn't working for me as a person. It just wasn't. It wasn't working for my, health wise. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for me in a lot of ways. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't that good for me. And then there'd always been this question there about this kind of spiritual part of me. And then I had an opportunity to go to Germany to live in Hamburg for a couple of years and study Rudolf Steiner's work really intensively, his more esoteric spiritual side of things, as opposed to the most sort of commonly heard about things are the education system, Steiner education, and biodynamic agriculture and anthroposophical medicine and all that jazz. But I went down the spiritual esoteric path. And that was amazing, incredible time of my life and challenging in lots and lots of ways. And then we made a decision as a family, my wife's English, to move back to England. Well, for her going back to England, me going to England. Mm-hmm. And we've landed in this beautiful place in South Devon, which is the West Country in England. And for the last 2 years, we've been setting up a life here. And now my work is actually, which came out of the training that I did in Germany in the sort of spiritual work and personal development work, not just spiritual stuff, but sort of the American style personal development things that I've been doing for years, Tony Robbins and those kind of, California people that came out of California and all that.
All the people with big teeth, wide-eyed, big ideas, big energy, which I also am very partial to. We both bonded over Tony. We love Tony.
Yeah, took me a long time to get past all the cultural things, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah. And now I work. It's life coaching in a sense, but it often sort of has a spiritual angle. Not that I don't really talk about that unless people want to talk about that. That's up to them. And now it's really focused on relationships. So that could mostly, as in love relationships, romantic marriages, etc. And then, but it can sort of go anyway. That's sort of the angle I take is relationships, but it ends up being about whatever it is for that person and their life journey, really.
Yeah. And we've talked a bit about the importance of relationships and like that intimate relationship thing. It's such an important thing in your life. Like it's something you've really focused on, which is why you're able to spend time with people and help them with it. But what is it about relationships that you find so either interesting or important?
I think it partly comes from my own. So I'm extremely lucky in that I met someone, so I was like 23, I think, 22, 23, when I met Emily, my wife, and we had so much in common. Everything went really great from the start. We still have our ideals in life are very well aligned, and sense of humour is well aligned, and lots of other stuff. And so I kind of got lucky early on. But then I realised that even though you can have all that stuff, you can have all those things in common, everything can be like seemingly perfect, and it's still really, really hard. It's really challenging. Relationships in general just are. And
why is that? Because I think that's really interesting. I think our concept of relationships that we get taught through media and movies and just the culture or whatever is, I don't know, I suppose one of the models I had was, I don't know, you meet someone and it's all cool, but if there's something wrong with them, you should move on. And that obviously sent me through a series of, different relationships or whatever, until I realized there's this thing. I was like, oh, okay, no, they actually are hard. There's going to be work involved. There's this idyllic idea that you'll find the perfect person or the knight in shining armor and happily ever after. So why are they so hard?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of different ways to answer it. But one is to say that it's a mirror. The relationship is really an intense way to experience yourself. So, yes, you could go and live in a cave, and that's sort of what I thought I'd do in my early 20s. I thought I'd end up meditating in a cave for 10 years or something. And that's got its own challenges, of course. So I'm not saying that's an easy path, but this path of having this intimate other with you through the great times and the terrible times and everything in between, showing you, reflecting back to you who you are through them, through the triggers that come up about the littlest things. I was just talking to a couple that I was working with the other day about the cutlery drawer issue when you live with someone. And it's amazing, it nearly comes up with everyone I speak to, that they came into the relationship, moved in together and realised the other person puts things in the cutlery drawer in a different order. And it sounds like a silly thing, but it's like this clash of two world belief systems. So you come in with your whole cultural, familial, whatever, it might be religious, it might be, spiritual views or atheistic views, whatever. You come into this cauldron, this crucible where there's two belief systems clash or not even clash but just meet each other. And the cutlery drawer is a funny one because it's like, it happened to me. It was like, I just saw the cutlery drawer, how she did it. And I went, what's she doing? What's she doing? It's that. This is how they go.
This person's an insane person.
Yeah. You get this sense that actually things can be done in many different ways, which you get a little bit when you have a house share and you live with your mates while you're studying or whatever. But when it becomes this really intimate thing, this person's going to know pretty much everything about you, and you're going to know pretty much everything about them, all the stuff that you want to know and all the stuff that you didn't want to know. It's just going to be intense. And I think it's also that the reason it needs work, I don't really like using the word work because of all the negative connotations, but it needs energy given to it of some form, in some form. That's how I prefer to put it. The reason that's the case is because of basically the law of entropy, where everything in the universe, including our bodies and our houses and our and our cars and our relationships are all heading towards destruction, basically. Sorry to put it so bluntly, but
disorder.
Disorder. The body is going to run out of steam if you don't feed it, water it, move it, and exercise it and do something for it. It is going to it's going to head towards dysfunction, and it's going to go that way anyway. We're all going to go that way anyway, but you have an opportunity to do something about it. And it's exactly the same with relationships. If you just think it's going to be set it on autopilot and let it just do its thing, you're going to hit road bumps, and you're going to hit road bumps anyway. It's just the nature of people, individuals growing towards who they really are, that you're going to come up against stuff. It's just the natural order of things. So the only alternative to that is to put some energy into it. And that's what a lot of people don't do, is they just think, oh yeah, my relationship, that just should look after itself. But actually nothing really looks after itself in a way.
Yeah, that's true. I like the analogy of a house. Like, even if you move into a brand new house, at some point the doors are going to start to stick, and, you know, parts of it are not going to work. The paint's going to fade. There's going to be these little, stains, water stains on the walls or whatever on the outside. And you have to make time to put energy into it, or attention, to continue to, I suppose, maintain is probably not your favorite word either in this area, but with a house, you kind of need to maintain it, or it will go into that disrepair, and then you can't really live there anymore. The other one other thing about the relationships being so important, one thing I've sort of experienced with relationships is they're either going to be the best thing in your life, or they're going to be the worst thing. That usually our memories, like, if you think about some of the worst things that have happened to you, I don't know, I guess it's different for different people, but oftentimes, a breakup is going to be in there somewhere. It's like, it's something that can really devastate you for a long time. But if you also think about some of the highlights of your life, there's usually, that intimate partner is involved in that as well. So it traverses such a huge dynamic range in our emotional life or whatever, that it really deserves the attention to show that we value it, and so that it doesn't hit that rock bottom.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't necessarily take much either. It's our lives are made up of these tiny little moments. You tend to think in big terms all the time, like, oh, I've got to save my relationship. I have to, spend hours a day working out what to do and all that sort of stuff. But actually, it's the tiny little actions that you take each day, or even just the tiny moments where you're actually giving some thought to it. It's like I think one of the hardest things for human beings to do is actually to think. You can go if you're washing the dishes consciously. Yeah, if you're washing the dishes or something like that, your body can just kind of do it automatically, and your mind's free in a way. But to consciously decide, I'm going to actually think about this particular thing and actually eventually maybe even do something about it. that takes energy, and most of us, I think, as we get older, we tend to just want to do the things that are habitual, because it's just easier. It doesn't take up any energy. So this idea of putting energy into the relationship can often sound like this huge, scary sometimes for people, difficult thing to do. Oh no, I can't, because of my career's really important and I need to put all my time into that, or the kids are really important, I've got to put my time into that. But actually, it can be the tiniest little thing, just thinking of the other person a bit more often and thinking, what do they need? And maybe they just needed me to do something for them that took 5 minutes, or maybe they needed a kind word, or maybe they needed a little note just to remind them that I really appreciate what they do every day, or and it's those tiny little things that actually add up and make a big difference.
Mm. Yeah. It's very true. It is amazing. It's like applying the right thing at the right time can make such a huge difference in someone's day. Like, I know if my partner intervenes in a way and I don't know, does something for me just at the right time, it makes a world of difference. Like, it can feel like, oh, this person has thought about me, they care about me, they're looking after me in this particular way. And I don't know, just the relationship can shift from those small things. I'd like to talk about some music stuff. So when you either were getting started in music or your experience of writing songs, what's the thing that initially really drew you to it? What was something that happened early on where you thought, oh, this is something I'm into and I want to do and I derive some kind of satisfaction from it?
Yeah. I remember a particular moment when I was about 10 years old, and my mate from up the road, he used to come over and we'd put Dad's records on. We'd always listen to Sgt. Pepper's, the Beatles. And I just remember listening to the way the guitars sort of intertwined with each other, and I wasn't very conscious of what was happening or anything, but I had this thought, I would like to do that. Whatever that was. I don't really know what that was, but the way the guitars came in and intertwined did something to me emotionally, I suppose. And I thought, I'd like to do that. And then after that, I was always listening to it thinking, what do I want to be? Do I want to be the one making the guitar-y noises? Do I want to be the one making the drum sounds? Do I want to be the one singing? And I could never work out. I could never decide which thing I wanted to be. But anyway, so music was always there. Dad played in bands, and Dad's a really good drummer and singer, and so music was always there. And then it wasn't really until after I'd studied music at tertiary level that I thought about songwriting. And one day, my mate, a housemate I was living with, he had a little 4-track recorder, and I just had to muck around on it this one day, and I came up with this song and added a couple of different parts and then vocals and whatever. And then when I'd finished it and I played it to a few people, this thought very strongly just went, I could do this. I could do this, as in whatever that meant, write songs, I suppose. And so, yeah, I had written a couple of songs a few years previously, but they were crap. This was the first one where I thought, oh, this is all right. And it sort of went from there. I started doing it more. Started doing a couple of gigs in Melbourne, which was a massive thing. Even just doing a gig in Melbourne for me, this kid from the country, that was a really huge deal for me. Playing solo guitar and singing, and then I felt. Then a couple of just random coincidence meetings meant that I got a band happening. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you started talking about that, first gig in Melbourne thing, because I had a very similar experience. The first time I did an open mic in Melbourne, because I grew up in a country town, not 300 k's away, but just outside of Geelong. And then when I came to Melbourne, I think I actually drove up from Geelong to go to do an open mic, because I don't think there was one in Geelong. I remember doing that gig, and it was terrifying and nerve-wracking. And I did a cover and I did an original, I think, that I'd probably just written, I don't know, a few months before or something, one of my first songs ever. And it was a huge turning point. It was, it just felt so momentous. I'm not sure if there's been many other gigs since that have had that feeling. Do you relate to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big statement to the world, isn't it, to go up on stage in front of people and put your heart and soul on the line, and then could go either way.
Yes,
I suppose it
really could. You're right.
Yeah.
In my case, it almost did go the other way. I don't think I don't know if we've talked about this, but I did this open mic and I was going to do 2 songs, and there was an MC. There's always an MC, and they're usually a startup comedian, really. That I don't know. They're trying to get a comedy, I don't know, career going or something. And so I was going to do an Augie March cover, and he went, "Oh, Augie March, I hate that band." And he was meant to be introducing me. It was my first time on stage, and I was already almost in tears. And I was like, "Oh my God, he hates this song. Everyone's going to hate this song." and I did it, and I was just terrified. I really was very much on the verge of tears, almost having like a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And then, pushed through and did it. But when I came out the other side of it, I was just completely exhilarated. I just had erased anything that guy said. And so it can be one of those make or break moments.
Yeah, and you pushed through, didn't you? And then you pushed through and got the gold at the end, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was enough to get you going.
Yeah, you get that affirmation of, I can do this. Like you were saying, like, I can do this. You start to see a glimmer of possibility. And I remember I even had to borrow an acoustic guitar from a friend to do it. I had an electric guitar from when I was 11, and then so I had to go take it back to him afterwards. And I remember handing it back to him and just saying, "I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
And like you were saying, what is this? I didn't know what this was, but I knew I was going to do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a momentous thing. So what was your experience? Where did you do your first gig in Melbourne?
It was also an open mic, and it was so I did 3 songs. I think I did 3 original songs. It was the Royal Derby in Brunswick Street.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know it, right, corner of Brunswick Street and Alexandra Parade, pretty much. Yeah, and then I actually saw Augie March there as well at some point around that time. So I was really, really nervous. My girlfriend at the time, her parents were there, and I don't know, I can't really remember much about it, but I must have already decided this is what I was going to do. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. What else can we talk about? Well, another reason I really wanted to talk to you and want to continue talking to you is to maybe simulate how conversations can happen. People have conversations all the time, but there's something that we've both acknowledged that's interesting about our friendship is that we don't just believe what the other person believes. We're not in lockstep with each other's belief systems or how we approach the world. And it's really interesting, like you were saying about your wife, that you have so many values, I suppose, aligned. I suppose we have that too. We have a couple of very core values that are aligned that allow us to talk about things that are not aligned, that are like polar opposites in many ways. And I think if I were to just encounter someone, well, maybe this is kind of part of it. If I was to encounter someone just out of the blue who had such divergent views to me, I think I would find it difficult to find a way to connect. But because I suppose we have a basis of a friendship, we're able to not even disagree. We don't really disagree. We just talk about things.
Yeah.
So what do you think's at the basis of that? What do you think allows that to happen?
Well, this is one of my favorite topics. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Because it's so important in any relationship, friendship, anything. And it's to do with, well, I think in our case, it's to do with a mutual respect for the other person, regardless of what they believe. And I think if you can start with that in friendships and relationships, you can extend it to everyone you meet. That, standing before me right now, this person who believes these things that I think are horrendous or or just wrong, or maybe they even have racist beliefs, or all kinds of things that people believe. then this question arises about how to deal with that. So do I just take a contrary position and just, as soon as they say anything that I don't believe or agree with, do I meet them and challenge it? Or can I ask it sort of a deeper question in a way, which is, who is this person and what are they trying to say? What's behind the words? And so there's a great exercise you can do, I think, that's really helpful with this. And that is essentially just following another person's thinking, regardless of whether you agree or disagree either, doesn't matter. But follow their thinking so that you really, really understand where they're coming from, which is really, really challenging, especially if it's someone who believes something completely contrary to what you do. But often what happens when you do this, if you really do it properly and follow another person's thinking, is that a kind of a space opens up where something new comes in. It's like you learn something. You don't just learn something, though. You really get something. And something new, you notice when you try it with people, something new occurs to them as well. So I had a conversation. I'm not an atheist, but I had a conversation with someone who was an atheist. And we started from a place of talking about what happens when you die. And they basically said, when you die, that's it, finished, gone. That's it. You're just your body, and that's the end of it. And, maybe when I'm in my early 20s, if I had an opposite view to someone, I'd sort of challenge it and try and, convince them or whatever. And now what I do more so is actually, really dive deeply into their thinking and follow it. Can I really follow it? And it's actually painful. It's painful to do it because everything in you wants to disagree and go against it. And you almost feel like you're, what's the word? It almost feels like you're agreeing with it or saying it's okay for them to believe that.
Right.
Let's say it's a racist thing, just to use an extreme example. Everything in you wants to say wrong, stop. You prove them wrong. If you do this thing of following the thinking through, and often this magic moment comes. So there's having this conversation with an atheist saying death's the end, etc. And then just after this conversation of following the thinking through, this little moment came where the person went, well, but I suppose we don't know really, do we? Right. And that was just a little window of keeping the question open. And I'm not saying that I then need to go and convince the person that I'm right. They could be doing it to me from an atheist point of view and trying to get me to learn something new. So, but that's where this human connection then comes in. You actually feel when you practice this that this human connection becomes much more important than just an opinion, because we're so much more than just our opinions. Although being on Facebook would have you believe otherwise. But so, this real human meeting that can occur when one person just decides to listen to another. So, but to come back to your question, why is it like that with you and I don't really know, but I think we both give each other the space to say what we think and then ask questions to see where they go. But we don't ever go, we tell each other what we believe, but we don't ever really say you're wrong or
and here's why.
try and convince the other of why they're wrong. You just listen. So
I think that the thing of the mutual respect, and also the openness to learning and openness to the idea that you can be wrong, that you don't have all the answers, and people have interesting things that you can learn when you listen rather than just talk all the time or try to convince everyone. That's very powerful.
Sorry, just to cut in there, but I also think that often if you just listen to another person, you find that actually a lot of the times you actually have similar things that you believe, but they're expressed in different words. So often you'd be arguing, I don't know if you've had this experience, you're arguing with someone, but actually it turns out that you sort of agree, but you're just using different words.
Yeah. Yeah. Or underneath the belief or the opinion, you essentially want the same outcome, but you've come to it in different ways or something. I guess that's very often when I think about in politics, left and right, both sides are trying to, generally you could say, they're trying to achieve, improved conditions for people in a fairer society or a better society or something that is going to function and be more stable, whatever the outcome is. They tend to generally want to be moving in those directions, but they just have very different philosophies as how to get there. And if you get to the bottom of it, you can have that mutual respect, I suppose, which, as we know, just over the last, 5 or so years, the polarity has been so strong that it's very difficult to get to any kind of common ground. It's almost like you're not allowed to actually reach a common ground. You have to disagree with the other person. You have to hate them, actually, and you can never admit that they have any value or anything valuable to share.
Yeah, that's right. That's where these, they're kind of like, I picture them as kind of forces of division, which come in, and you've got the left, the right, you've got the feminist, the non-feminist, you've got the, in every area of life. Now with the COVID-19 coronavirus thing, you've got people who are terrified of the virus itself and follow what the mainstream media says, and that's where they're coming from. Then you've got other people who are more, they think it's all about government controlling us more. And it's just another point on which to be divided that sort of eats away at our common humanity. It's like, us versus them. It's, the people who really think the virus is a big threat are really angry with the people who don't, and vice versa, But then it just turns us against one another a lot of the time.
Yeah. One of the other things I heard as you were talking about really following the other person's thinking. So was just the simple dynamic that when you really listen deeply to someone and you hear them out, it creates a connection immediately because the person feels heard. They feel seen and acknowledged, and you've allowed them to lay out their thing. So in a way, it creates this very kind of safe environment for them to start even questioning themselves and being more open or whatever. But I think that's such a powerful thing you can do for another human being, is really just be there and listen deeply. And I know that's something in some of your training that you were doing, is how to listen deeply. Do you have any insights you want to share before we maybe wind her up?
Sure, yeah. We have trouble, just that the reason Mio's smiling now is because we often have trouble winding up and we end up saying we're going to talk for 20 minutes and talking for 3 hours. So, I think it's important with listening that you're not going into it with an agenda. So you're not going in to speak to someone with this other view in order to change their view. If you're going in with an ulterior motive, then that's always there in the background, and the sort of the process doesn't really work in the same way. It's not about going in to try and convince someone of something else. It's more just going in to purely listen and understand another person in some way. And that's really the key, is to understand. So to understand to listen, to understand, and then actually to make it even more powerful, if you really want to go to the next level, is show them that you understood. So, say back to them in your own words what you've understood, and see if you really did understand why they believe that or what they actually believe. And that's when the other person will really feel heard and understood. Because really, I think one of the deepest human needs is to be understood. Yeah, we want to be heard. Yes, we want to be, loved. We want to be accepted. But we also really want to be understood. And if another person can put themselves aside or if we can do it for another person, put ourselves aside, our own wishes, desires, passions, opinions, beliefs, just put them aside just for a brief moment and really allow this other person to speak. It's actually a sacrificial act in a way for that short time to get ourselves out of the road, and something new can come to both people. It's a mutual thing. So it's a real gift if someone can do that, either for us or us for them, in my experience anyway. And to come back to relationships, that's one of the keys. It's not everything, but people talk a lot about communication in relationships, how important it is. But more than communication, I think it's about understanding, because we're actually communicating all the time in a relationship. The way the look on our face, the subtle expressions, the subtle tones in our voices, body language. We're actually there's never a communication. There's never an issue with communication. We're always communicating, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not just about communication. It's about understanding and seeking to understand. And you can't always understand. Sometimes you won't understand. You won't get it. But to at least try.
Yeah. It's a beautiful picture to paint. I'm sort of thinking, because when we do talk about communication, it's sort of like, well, I'm here now and I'm going to say something. As well as I can say it, I'm going to try and clearly communicate what's happening here. But if the listening isn't happening and the energy to fully receive it, I suppose, be an open receiver, then the communication is just going to hit the wall and fall to the floor and not do anything. So it's interesting, the emphasis on communication, but very little on listening. Yes.
Yeah, and understanding, even the next step. Yeah.
That's next level.
Because actually, when we're in the heat of the moment of things, and I'll stop now, but in the heat of things,
now. I'm hanging up.
In the heat of the moment, if you're honest with ourselves, we actually don't really want to understand. We want to hold on to our thing. No, I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. You've got it wrong. We don't want to actually want to understand. So that's where that real, it takes courage. It takes courage. It's scary to not stand your ground in a way. It's the opposite to standing your ground. And that's in our culture, that's sort of against the flow. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this is part one of many. If people want to find out more about what you do and what you're up to at the moment, where's the best place for them to go and connect with you?
Yeah, well, okay. The website is relationshipevolution.co. So that's the coaching stuff. If anyone's interested in the music side of things, then I'm at that's the Bandcamp site for Young Werther. So what is it? youngwerther.bandcamp.com.
Yep. I'll put links around the place so people can
cool.
Go check stuff out.
Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. Man, it's been a pleasure to talk to you and to listen very deeply to you. And I really look forward to doing it again.
Me too.
Every time we have a conversation, and we have them regularly, and I always leave, better off than when I came. It's always a transformational sort of thing in my life. So again, thank you for it. And I look forward to the next time.
Well, it's the same for me. Same for me every time. So thank you.
Cool. Peace out. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
So there you go. We went all over the place. Mick's got some great advice. for, relationships, music, all sorts of stuff. So you can find out all the links to the different things that Mick does in the show notes or in the description below here. So please check him out, connect with him in all those different places. Your life will be better off in that instance. So if you like this episode, please hit the like button, the thumbs up, share it on social media, with your own kind of comments or your insights into this conversation. Please leave comments below. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a review or give it a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you happen to be listening to this. And I thank you very much for that. That helps to get the podcast out to more music lovers and listeners who would be interested in this kind of thing. So thanks very much. If you'd like to get a free download of some of my music, you can head to mijobiscan.com/free music, or you can get a signed limited edition personalized CD sent to you anywhere in the world of my latest album Golden Moment by going to mijobiscan.com/GMCD. You also get a instant digital download of the album and the artwork and lyric booklet when you decide to do that. So thanks again for checking this out. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below. Take it easy, stay golden, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.